Hey you guys, it's Peter and welcome to my channel Peterisms, where I tell stories of my life and just little things that I have learned as I have grown into the person that I am today. I'm losing my voice a little bit. Can you hear that? Probably because I've been talking so much today. Imagine that. Can you even imagine that? So I just brought two books with me today. I brought both of the Melody Beatty books with me. I brought The Language of Letting Go, which is a sister book to Codependent No More. And I brought Journey to the Heart, Daily Meditations on the Path to Freeing Your Soul. They're two of my favorite. They're probably my two favorite meditation books of life. So I thought, I haven't read Sark books on here in a long time. If you've never heard of Sark, she's probably, next to Melody Beatty, my favorite inspirational writer, and she has a really great meditation book called Living Juicy. I keep all my meditation books in the bathroom underneath the cabinet, underneath the sink, or in the cabinet underneath the sink. They kind of sleep down there like Harry Potter in the cupboard under the stairs. But anyway, I love Sark's books, and most of her books are kind of like geared towards women, but anybody can read them. And she has a book called How to Make Your Creative Dreams Come True. It is like one of the most fantastic books ever. And in there she says that like with the people that she works with and inspiring, like she does like, teaches like big seminar classes, and she does like, I think like, well, this is back in the day, but she, did like private sessions and stuff like that. She said that with the people that she works with, that 15% of the people that she works with know that, like, what their creative dream is that they want to pursue, but 85% of them don't know what their creative dream is, but they know that they want one, And you think about that, it's like, I think all of us want to be, like, creative. And when we talk about being creative, I think that this will be so weird if these meditations have to do with this, because I literally have not looked in these books. But when we think about being creative, like Tanya the other night, my friend Tanya was saying to me, like, I always want to like create something. I always be creative. Like, I think we think that means like being an oil painter or watercolor painter, or something like that, or, like doing music, or, like these big kind of endeavors. And like, if you're creative, that means that you like took a lot of art classes or something. But that's not it. People that are creative are people that just are coming up with new ideas, or want to create things, and that can be anything from new recipes, or maybe you like to cook, or maybe you like to work in the garden and you like to create a garden, or, like my friend Mel, she's obsessed with crocheting, and she does the most amazing ponchos that friends of mine are buying right now. And, she loves to create new things, crocheting wise. And, creating can be anything. It can be creating a poem, or it can be creating a meal, or it can be creating a home. Maybe you like decorating or whatever. It doesn't, have to be anything big. It can just be what makes you happy to do, So, I brought these two books with me, and we're going to read from these two books, all right? So the first book that we're going to read from is The Language of Letting Go. The dogs have been wrestling, and they have been like chasing each other around all day today. So let's hope that doesn't happen. They are currently back there somewhere, so we'll probably see them run up through here. Okay, August 20th. I cannot believe we are in the countdown to the end of August. Oh my God, this is a really long one. Maybe I'll do the 19th. This one is like literally like 3 pages long. Okay, let's do the 19th because it's letting go of shame. And the 20th is honesty in relationships, which is a great one to talk about, but it's 3 pages long. So let's do the 19th, letting go of shame. I think it's a fantastic meditation. Letting go of shame, August 19th, letting go of shame. Shame is that dark, powerful feeling that holds us back. Yes, shame can stop us from acting inappropriately, but many of us have learned to attach shame to healthy behaviors that are in our best interest. In dysfunctional families, shame can be tagged to healthy behaviors such as talking about feelings, making choices, taking care of ourselves, having fun, being successful, or even feeling good about ourselves. Shame may have been attached to asking for what we want and need, to communicating directly and honestly, and to giving and receiving love. Sometimes shame disguises itself as fear, rage, indifference, or a need to run and hide, wrote Stephanie E. But if it feels dark and makes us feel bad about being who we are, it's probably shame. In recovery, we are learning to identify shame. When we can recognize it, we can learn to let go of it. We can love and accept ourselves starting now. We have a right to be here. We have a right to be here, and to be who we are. And we don't ever have to let shame tell us any differently. And then it says, today I will attack and conquer the shame in my life. I think that's a great meditation, you know, like, I think that when you, like, especially when you get sober, but this can be for anybody, you know, and I think especially when you have grown up in toxic or chaotic environments, or as an adult, you know, if you have toxic relationships with people in your family, or other relationships in your life. But I think typically when it comes from like your family, I think many of us find origin of shame in the families that we grew up in, or, you know, things that like, you know, when they say that secrets keep you sick, but like most of us grew up like that there were family secrets, things we didn't talk about in our family. You know, you just don't talk about these things. You know, I think the majority of us learned that, and it never even had to be said, did it? Like, we just learned these are things you don't talk about when you're at other people's houses or with other family members or at school. You just don't talk about these things, right? Like, I really, you know, like in like recovery with all of my friends, I don't know one person that didn't grow up with that to some degree. Now, in my home, it was my mom's drinking, you know? That was the thing that you didn't talk about. So then what, if you don't talk about it, what I learned subconsciously was, and that was never said, I mean, it was never said, don't talk about my drinking, you know? And I actually was talking about this in my vlog the other night. I was talking about, you know, like, that I was never told that I couldn't talk about it. I wonder what would have happened had I talked about it. I think my mom, who is very conscious and aware of her drinking and how bad of a problem it was, you know, I think that she probably, like, had I ever, like, in a counseling session, because I did go to counselors a lot when I was younger, I think had I ever said to a counselor, like, my mom's drinking really upsets me, and, like, we sat down and I was, like, had to say that to my mom, I think that maybe would have planted a seed a lot earlier in her getting sober. And I don't take responsibility for that. You know, I just don't. But I think that, you know, my family was one that was so open that if I could say those things, you know, I don't know. I look back on that and I think, I don't know why. I think I didn't want to hurt my mom's feelings because I was ashamed of that. And I knew that that was a bad thing. And so, like, even though my mom's drinking was, like, scary and toxic and chaotic, like, I didn't want to hurt her feelings at the same time. You know what I mean? So I didn't. And so then we grow up and we carry those feelings of shame with us. And one of the things that we learn in sobriety, we learn in recovery, is that it's not a program of shame or blame. You don't blame people and you don't shame yourself for things that you went through. And guilt does us no good whatsoever, you know? The dogs, they are playing up tonight, aren't you guys? I had to go check on them. They are wrestling tonight. So anyway, but you know, like, one of the things I learned about guilt too is that, like, I don't know, like, I always thought that, like, taking responsibility and guilt were so closely aligned. And I can remember, like, with my mom, we had a conversation one time, I think it was, like, during a family group or something that I was in with her. And she, like, took all of this responsibility, like, for, like, everything that I had gone through. And she's like, well, if I had never drank, then you would never have learned that somewhere and blah, 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 whatever. And I'm like, do you think that? And she was like, yeah, like, I really do think that if I had never role modeled that behavior and taught you that it was right, that you would never have done it. I'm like, that is so unfair. Like, she's like, what do you mean? And I go, well, if you're responsible for every reason that I drank, every drink that I drank, every, you know, every drug that I ever did, and I laid it out, like, I said each thing, you know, which was always hard for my mom to hear. I said, if you are responsible for each of those things that I did, then you're also responsible for my recovery and my sobriety, and I've worked too hard for it, and I'm sorry, but I'm not letting you take responsibility for that. So no, that guilt is pointless. Like, what does that guilt do for you? Like, when we feel guilt inside, if you feel guilty for something that has happened in your life, ask yourself today, even if you truly were partly responsible for that, like, do I think that my mom drinking and having it around me and normalizing it probably had something to do with me wanting to drink? Sure, I do think that, right? But do I think that her holding onto that guilt was going to change anything? No, it was useless. There was no power for that guilt. That guilt didn't do anything but make her feel worse. It didn't help me get sober. It didn't keep me sober. It didn't help her feel better about herself. So what was the point of the guilt? So whatever your guilt is that you are feeling, okay, maybe it's a loss of a family member, you know, do you feel responsible for that? You know, maybe it's a loss of a relationship or, you know, whatever. I mean, it doesn't have to be an addiction thing, right? It can be something that you feel guilty for in your life. I think many of us feel like, okay, guilty. Ask yourself, what is holding onto that guilt for? Like, I'm having, like, kind of like an aha moment myself right now thinking about this. But what is that guilt doing for you? Like, it's so funny because, like, I believe these things. But, like, sometimes when I'm talking about it and then after I get off, you know, from filming, I really think about it and I'm like, okay, like, eat your words, like, go, like, walk the walk now, you know, like, because guilt is something that I still struggle with, you know, but, like, it does, I know I know consciously that it does me absolutely no good. Like, what's the point, you know? And I would say that to my mom. And so ask yourself, whatever you're feeling guilty for, you've got to let that go. Like, it's not doing you any good. It's just holding you back. It's weighing you down. It's an anchor in the, the water. It's just holding you down. So anyway, and shame does that too. What's the power of shame? It does nothing for us. It just, all of these things that just make us feel worse about ourselves. Who wants that? I don't want to feel worse about myself. Do you? And that all goes into that sick, vicious cycle of, well, if I'm to blame for this, and if I'm guilty for this, and if I should feel ashamed for this, right, then I'm not worthy of love. And then I can't love myself, because if I can't love myself, then I can't give it to somebody else. And then it stays in this whole situation. I'm sure there are many of you out there that are like, hello, that's me. Because I have been there before, right? Where it's like, if you knew everything about me, you would know that I'm not lovable. And then if I'm not lovable, I can't love myself. Therefore, I don't have the ability to love somebody else, right? Somebody asked me recently on a video, I think they were kind of like upset that I said it, and they said this whole idea that if you don't love yourself, you can't love somebody else, like that's not true. It is absolutely true, okay? And let me tell you why. Because if you don't have the ability to care about yourself, and you can't identify love within yourself, if you can't see it, find it, and look for it within your own soul, then you aren't going to be able to see it in other people. You won't acknowledge it in other people, right? Like, you can say the words, like, I love you, and I love this about you, and I care about you, and you can, bend over backwards taking care of people and doing all that kind of stuff, but that's not really unconditional love, okay? Unconditional love is about forgiveness, it's about understanding, it's about compassion, and if you can't do that for yourself, then you really know you can't do that for somebody else, because you can't even do it for yourself enough to allow yourself to look in the mirror and say, I love you, and you are worthy of my love. And if you can't do that for yourself, then you do not have the capacity to love somebody else, And one of the things that I love that I heard Oprah say, in regards to what we look for in people, okay? And I'm not saying that to chide that person, or put them down. I'm just saying, like, really take a look at that. Like, that's some work that we each need to do in ourselves, right? Like, I want to love myself. Like, I want to look in a mirror and say, I love you. Like, and make it feel like I'm wrapping my arms around myself to care about myself. Because if I don't care about myself, then I'm sending a message to the world that nobody else should either, right? And I want to be loved. I want to be cared about, One of the most valuable things I ever heard on an Oprah show was when she was talking about when we have this expectation for love from other people. This has gone in so many different directions, hasn't it? But when we have this expectation for love from other people, right? We keep on trying. It's like we want this from them and we want that. And this guy that she had on her show said, it's when you're looking for gallon-sized love from a pint-sized person. And she goes, oh my God, And it is so true, right? Like, have you ever been with that person before? It's not that they're a bad person. It's not. They're not a horrible person. They aren't trying to not give you what you need. It's they don't have the ability to give you what you need, okay? They have pint-sized love inside of them to give. Many of them don't love themselves. So how can we expect them to give us a gallon of love when they only have a pint to give, right? But we expect that from people. And that's when our expectations, lead to resentments and anger, because we think somebody should have done for us what they didn't do. And then that resentment and that anger, okay, that person didn't love me the way that I wanted to be loved. Well, maybe they didn't have the ability to do that. Maybe they didn't love themselves. Maybe nobody taught them how to be loved, I don't know. So anyway, I think all of it goes back to learning how to love ourselves and letting go of guilt and shame and remorse. I think to have remorse about situations that have happened in our life, I think is good. But to sit in remorse for the rest of our lives and not take it and look at it as a learning experience, I think, that's what's important with it. I think, the idea of, do you understand what I'm saying? Like, if you're remorseful over things that you've done or things that have happened, like that, I think is healthy, right? If it leads you in the direction of, I want to learn from this situation, I want to learn and I want to grow and I want to become a better person. But to just sit in that and berate yourself that you're a horrible person, what good is that doing? Like, it does no good whatsoever. It's not leading you on the path to love. When I read the 4 Agreements for this channel, which I've completely stopped reading books for this channel, but when I read the 4 Agreements and I read that, like, everything that you do, lead with love, I was like, that was life-changing for me just to read that sentence. Just to read that sentence, to realize that everything that I do should lead with love. That means towards me as well. And those things that stand in the way of me not leading towards love or leading with love need to be gone. I need to get rid of them. They are not useful in my toolbox of life. So anyway, let me know what you think about that in the comment section below. I love you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.